Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Chaos Theory Podcast. If you don't know by now, you ain't been paying attention. Start paying attention, goddammit. My name is Mr. Chaos. I am a 30-plus year fan of the wrestling business. Happen to love it enough to sit down and dedicate some time and have been lucky enough to get some amazing people involved in this business on my show tonight. My next guest, man, is somebody I've wanted on for a while now. As you guys know, I've been interacting with the Death Threat Army for a while. Started with Jack Price, then went to Tommy Vendetta. Last couple weeks ago, I had Isaiah Broner on. And it's just so everybody doesn't get it mistaken, because it drives me crazy. It's Broner, not Bronner. Let's just get that out the way right now. Isaiah Broner on, had a ball. I've had a ball with every member of DTA so far. Tonight, I don't expect it to be any different. I've been a huge fan of this group ever since I met Jack. Jack and I interacted just based off some Twitter stuff, and he was a good dude, and we had a great interview. The guy that I'm bringing on tonight has fought the likes of the Brooklyn Brawler, Trey Miguel, Bandolero, Tyson Dukes, Josh Alexander, as well as Isaiah Broner, Tommy Vendetta, and Jack Price. He's been all over the world wrestling and in the military. He's held a metric fuck ton of titles wherever he's been. He's laid out opponents in more countries and more places that I can tell you. You guys, tonight, my honor, my guest, Captain fucking America, Aaron Orion. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, bro.
Absolutely, man. Like I was saying, Jack got me introduced to you guys, and I've been a hardcore supporter ever since.
Yeah, like I watched Bronner's thing, and then I seen on Twitter like, oh, you got to get Aaron Orion on, and he was saying super nice shit about me, and I was, man, like that's, it's like it's always one thing because it's your boys, and you always kind of expect like, they're gonna say some nice shit, and then listen to Bronner talk and go on and on. And I was just like, man, dude, it makes this so much more special. And then hearing how much that you support us and support our fucking cause and everything like that, I was super pumped when you finally asked me to come on.
Absolutely, brother. Like, the first things first, like you being an Army veteran, myself being an Army vet, Tommy being a Marine Corps vet, we all have that different bond than everybody else. It's just different. If for you guys who don't know, who've never been involved in the military, for me, and I can speak for me, when somebody volunteers to and raises their right hand and signs on that line, there's something special about that person. You make it through basic training, you get your balls kicked in, no matter Marine Corps, Army, Navy, Air Force, you get your balls kicked in, and you serve your time, and there's a little bit different bond there than it is with anybody else. So that was the first thing that, with Tommy and with you that I have in common, then that's different than anybody. What I want to get into before we even touch on your time in the military is, how did you get into wrestling as a fan?
It kind of comes in like two pieces. Like I remember watching like old, not like when I say old, I'm going to date how much I didn't like care for wrestling, I guess. But like I remember watching like early 90s stuff with my grandma. Like her house kind of sucked. So I never went up there that often to like hang out, but you were always kind of obligated. So I would go up there every now and then and just like hang out for a little while. Like both my grandmas and my mom, we all lived in the same neighborhood. So it was just like, one street away was like my mom's mom, 2 streets away was my dad's mom, and we'd be at my dad's mom's house all the time. But my mom's mom, so my grandma Evie, she loved wrestling. She was huge. So we'd go up there and I'd hang out. And I remember like we went out to this place and got some like, it's called Frankenbooth up here. It's just like it's kind of like a German tourist place where like the whole place is set up like a German city, and they do like they have a big cheese place in there. And I remember going up there and they got cheese, and like we got a bunch of just like cool different flavor cheeses or whatever. Came home and I just remember watching like it was Jake the Snake. And he comes in, I'm laying on the floor. I'm like a little kid, and like he throws a snake in the ring, And I'm just like, what is this bullshit? Like, what's going on? And like, my grandma's like pumped, like she can't believe what's going on. And in my head, I was like, man, this is like so like cheesy. And it didn't like, I watched it, but it never like hooked me. I never went out to watch it. But that's my earliest memory. And then when we were a little bit older, like between like, I don't know, like 8, 9, 10, 11 ish, that's when like the WCW cruiserweight started. And that's when I really like got addicted to watching WCW. So like it was just like I love watching the cruiserweights. I love watching like Eddie and Ray and Psychosis and Dean Malenko, and I just loved watching those dudes fly around and all the cool shit they would do. Um, and then what like what really like put the hooks in was the Cactus Jack, Chainsaw Charlie, New Age Outlaws feud. That's what like hooked me.
Wow, that man, you bringing back straight childhood. Chainsaw Charlie, for you guys who don't know, is Terry Funk. Like, you talk about a dude who is a legit bad motherfucker. Terry Funk is that dude. Mick
Oh
Foley
yeah,
obviously is the hardcore legend. Billy Gunn, BG James, Brian James, everybody knows about those guys. But Terry Funk, he didn't have to do none of that shit with those guys.
yeah.
He,
No, I just remember like because like what I remember seeing before the dumpster match was like it was like there was a pile driver through a table, and on WCW I just never seen anything like it was never grimy like that. It was always like it was kind of the same thing I was talking about the early '90s stuff. It was kind of all cartoony and kind of
Mhm.
like I love the cruiserweights because that was awesome, but everything else kind of felt like I don't know, it was like almost like too flamboyant for me at the time. And then when I seen that, and I seen these guys having like these like street fights, and they had the dumpster match, and um, that's when I first like identified with it, with like, oh, I could do this because I was like a fat ass little kid. I was like 230 pounds at like 12 years old, and I just remember thinking like, I love Billy Gunn. He's still one of the top 3 favorite wrestlers. Um, and I remember like seeing Billy Gunn, like, dude, this guy is fucking awesome. And then I remember like, and like, he's a physical specimen, looks like $1,000,000. Then you see Road Dogg, and he just looks like a regular guy. And I was like, dude, I'm a regular guy. Like, that's like, so then like I was immediately just like hooked into like, I want to be the New Age Outlaws. Like, I might not ever get to be Billy Gunn, but like, if I can have like that, like, that X factor, that, like, that charisma and that, like, that juice that Road
Mhm.
Dogg had, and you can still make it.
Oh yeah, and Road Dogg was that guy on the mic. Like, there's some pictures of Road Dogg in WCW with his little curly Jerry curl, and when going from that to what he became in WWE, you're like, what the fuck happened to this dude? But
Right.
his charisma, obviously, he's a second generation guy. His dad, Bullet Bob Armstrong, his brothers wrestled, but there was something special when Road Dogg took the mic. It kept you captivated. Like, he was never going to be a guy that was world heavyweight champion. It just wasn't in the cards
Right.
for him. But in the mid to late '90s, I dare anybody to find me a tag team that was as over as the New Age Outlaws.
No, man, like they were just they had because like Road Dogg was a great wrestler as like just as who he was, but then he had that, like I said, he had the juice, and then Billy Gunn was kind of like the opposite. You didn't want
Mhm.
to catch him on the mic for too long, but he could tear down a house with his athleticism and his charismatic, like, I don't know, like his charisma in the ring. And
Yeah.
it's like they just had best of the both worlds, and then also it just, like I said, it caught me because he didn't look like everyone else. Like, he looked like a guy, and I was like, dude, like, if he can do it, especially back then when you had to be 6'4" or whatever in the hell,
Yeah.
and I was like, man, that's what I knew. And then that like bled right into like the NWO versus the Wolf Pack, and that's
Uh-huh.
when I was just like, dude, like I remember watching that, like when Sting joined the Wolf Pack, and we are running downstairs to tell my mom, and she didn't give a shit, but we didn't care. Like, and that's what I knew, and that's when we started wrestling in our backyard, like on a trampoline or on mattresses. We'd drag our mattress out and put it in the backyard, and like when my mom was gone or whatever, we'd be out wrestling on our just anything we could get, and then it was just like from there it was just nonstop until eventually we found a place that had a ring, and then we then the whole thing began.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was like that for us too. My little brother and I were hardcore. I mean, he would watch WCW in one room, I'd watch WWE in another. And then when commercials would come on, we'd switch rooms so we could watch the other show. And it was like the one. There's a couple of things from WCW that stick out that they did really well. There's a moment that will never be forgotten by anybody who was watching during that time, and it's when Kevin Nash lawn darted Rey Mysterio into the trailer.
Yeah.
And it's one of those moments where it's so simple. You're not taking a ginormous bump. I mean, Rey Mysterio is 5'2", so that's a big bump for him. But you're not taking like this crazy 15-foot cage bump. But it at that time, it looked like a gang fight. It was just the shit. And then there's another moment, and it's my favorite match of all time. Eddie versus Ray from Halloween Havoc in 1997.
Oh yeah.
Amazing match. And I talk to people about this match all the time. There's one thing that Eddie did that made me just click to him. And it was Ray was doing a springboard from the outside in, or no, it might have been he was doing a springboard up to the top. And Eddie realized he was too close and Ray wasn't going to hit the move. And Eddie literally just moved back a quarter of an inch, and Ray hit a moonsault DDT, and it looked so goddamn smooth. But if Eddie didn't step that quarter inch backwards, it wouldn't have looked nearly as good and probably would have hurt somebody.
Right.
That moment, and I'm a wrestling nerd to even notice that, but that moment solidified Eddie to me as the greatest wrestler of all time.
Well, I was just saying, I think for me too, like from my earliest memories of wrestling, and I don't know if like my grandma was like when she was watching it, she was like, and I said like I don't ever recall this happening, but it's like I don't know if she was like kind of like giving me like the nod to kind of know what wrestling was, but it's like I've always known what wrestling like I don't ever remember being a fan of wrestling thinking that what was happening wasn't a like it wasn't theater in some way. Like
Mm-hmm.
I never remember watching it being like thinking it was a football game type thing. I
Mm-hmm.
always watched it understanding what it was and understanding that you had to work together and then like those spots just like you're talking about, like being like that tech like the one that stands out to me just it has nothing to do with those guys, but when they were doing all those TLC matches and there's a spot and Christian is all over the place in these matches when
Yep.
he's right off camera holding the ladder down so like Jeff Hardy could run up it. He for when I don't know if it was when Shelton Benjamin did the roll, like the run up and flip out of the ring. He's down there holding the ladder down, and there's so many things like that where it's just like I remember watching those and being so involved in it, but always knowing what was actually going on and then appreciating those things. Like I can't believe that he thought in the moment to be like, hey, I got to make sure that I got to hold this down. Like, and that's why I was a Christian was like one of the best to ever do it. And I mean, now I feel like nowadays he's getting way more. And now he's old as shit, but like, I mean, not old as shit, but you know what I'm saying. But like,
Yeah.
he's been in business so long, he went so long without getting the recognition he deserves. Now he's getting it
Mm-hmm.
more than ever. But it's like he went so long with just being like this unsung hero of being like what it actually means to be a ring general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Christian was one of those guys that, and this is just me as a fan, Christian strikes me as the guys that the boys in the locker room were like, I want him in my match as much as I possibly can.
Right.
Because he's going to make me look like a fucking $1,000,000.
Yeah.
And he's going to be safe about it. I've never heard one person, and again, it's just, Twitter and Facebook or whatever, but I've never heard one report of Christian's unsafe or Christian did this to hurt me or da 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 da. Christian has always been the guy that he was never Edge. Edge struck out and that rated R character took, and it was just to the goddamn moon. But go ahead, Colton. So Colton Rider 21 said, Aaron is my favorite wrestler, and I have a question. Go ahead, Colton. What's your question? But Christian was one of those guys that man, even to this day, like you said, he's older in the business now. But watching the shit that he's doing with Josh Alexander, a guy we'll talk about later, that you just had a fucking 5-star match with.
Thank you.
the shit that he did in TNA with Tyson Tomko and AJ and stuff like that. Christian is finally sitting back and people are realizing like, oh no, this motherfucker should be in the Hall of Fame for real.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah, he was always one of those guys where, like, even when I was, which, and I'm not saying, um, I wouldn't do it now. The only reason I wouldn't do it, but the only reason I don't do it now is because I don't have them in my possession. I've lost them, or they're like storage or whatever. But even back when I used to play with my action figures and stuff, and this is like I'm 25 years old when I'm talking about this. I'm not talking about being like 13. I'm talking about like 10 years ago. When I sat down and I would put matches together with all these and I had a buddy who like made custom figures, so I had all these guys. I had the Briscoes, I had El Generico, I had all these guys he'd custom made to be able to play with and shit. And
hell yeah.
still, even then, I would still have Christian on these fake shows that I was booking and then playing out the action figures, and he would still be having these crazy matches. Even though I had all these guys who could do all the flips and do all this crazy shit, he was always the guy where it's like, no matter what I did, even if I'm fake wrestling with toys, I always gave him the respect that fucking Christian deserved. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. So Colton wants to know, is this your biggest year in wrestling?
Oh yeah, dude, you know it is. You've been there for all these shows. I didn't start wrestling again until March, and I didn't really mean to.
Hold
I
on,
didn't feel like,
we have to pause real quick. Kenji, fucking Kenji, can you have Aaron Orion sign my hat if I send it to him? Actually, I take it back. Tell him he's my favorite blonde-haired, blue-eyed devil.
Thank you, Kenji. Love you, dude.
Back to Colton. Sorry, Colton.
I didn't start wrestling until March, just everything that was going on with my son and everything, and then he was back home and everything was going good, but then I wasn't physically ready to wrestle. I was like 280 pounds or something, and I looked awful. And Jason Hotch had a cancellation. I think Rhino was supposed to be at it was Davey Boy Smith was supposed to be at the show, and he canceled. He got hurt like the night before or something, and they were trying to look for like I used like the quotes, like a name that people wouldn't be disappointed, and they somehow came to me, and I was like, well, dude, I'm not a name. But I would never, like just knowing that Jason needed me to fill the spot so he could still try to put a good match for his fans and stuff down at Metro Pro, which is where the show was. I fought with myself for like, I don't know, like probably 2 hours just trying to talk myself out of doing this match because I knew I was going to go out there and I wasn't going to be the Aaron Orion that I was in 2019. And I didn't want to go out there and just like be disappointing. And we still I had a great match. And then since then, we just had so many. There's been like I've been blessed with so many good matches in such a short amount of time. From we're in October, so in 7 months I've had, bigger matches, better matches, better quality matches with big name guys from Impact or wherever, or just awesome guys to work with who are just great hands in the ring independently. And I felt like it's just been essentially like every weekend has been like a match that I've wished that like man, I can't wait to. I wish I could wrestle this person. I wish I could wrestle this person. Like man, I hope that we can make this work. I hope we can make this work. And I hope someday I could wrestle Josh Alexander. And then somehow these things all start falling into place. And then you look back on the matches that I've been so grateful to have. And it's like I can't imagine not doing it now. But it's just like man, it's insane that like I said in 7 months. There's been insane matches that I would have dreamed of having over like a 2-year span, 3-year span. And I wanted, I hope it's because I'm doing a good job and doing the shit that you're supposed to be doing. And hopefully I've hit my peak, even though sometimes I feel like I'm too old. But yeah, so the long story short, or long story long rather, definitely the biggest year I've had.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, like you find something that you love and you do it and you do it and you do it and you do it, and sometimes you get physically burnt out, mentally burnt out, hurt, whatever the case is, and you just got to take a step back. Like there's a point in this podcast where I literally was doing a show. I was recording every 2 days, and I just got so mentally fucking burnt. I love wrestling. It's always been an escape for me. But it got to the point where I was covering every show. I was watching everything that's on, and it was just like,
Right.
this is a fucking job. I didn't do this to start a fucking job. This is supposed to be fun. And literally, I took a 6 month break. I was like, I'm done. I have to step away. I've got to. If not, it's going to be shitty product. And on top of that, I'm going to hate doing it. So let me step away. And
I mean, that's the
sometimes,
biggest thing. Like, and I have this conversation with young guys all the time. Even like some of our guys, like during like my son was diagnosed with brain cancer in May of 2020. So it was essentially right when the pandemic happened, and so there wasn't a lot of shows happening anyway. So like,
mm,
but I said to myself like I wasn't going to do that, and then we came back. And then when I came back in March the next year, I went so hard to the point we were doing like 4 shows a week, 3 or 4 shows a week, every week. We were on the road for 10 hours a day. You know, and I felt like I needed to get back into I just wanted to get back into the swing of things. And it got to the point where, and this happened relatively recent. We had a big talk about it with me and Adam, especially, where we were just like, man, like, I don't want to not be having fun.
mhm.
And this is all for nothing if I'm letting, like, you know, they always say, like, don't let the wrestling business work you, brother. And it's kind of like what it is
Yeah.
is like I feel like I owe so much to this that like I didn't want to say no when someone called. I didn't want to like just take a weekend for myself and just hang out with the kids. I felt like I had to do this, and and then it got to the point where it's like you look at certain shows that you're doing, and it's like you're doing yourself no favors.
Yep.
Like you're going there, you're not having a good day, so you're going to take 10, 12, 16 hours out of your day, and then you're not in those 16 hours. You might have fun for 8 to 12 minutes, but the other 15 hours and 48 minutes you're miserable. And you're like, I remember one time my kids went bowling, like my brothers and all their kids, they all went bowling, and I was at a show, and I was just like, man, like I wish I was bowling right now.
Mhm.
And that kept like compacting, and then and also like I'm grateful for this, so I don't mean to be like shitting on anybody, but it's like some of these shows that we were doing is they're just doing a show because they've always done shows.
Mhm.
They're not thinking about production. They're not thinking about distribution. They're not thinking of anything. They're just thinking like, hey, I've done this because I've always done this. So I'm just going to throw a ring in a building and we're going to hope for the best. And that was like when Adam Lick and I had this conversation, we were at one of those shows, and there was maybe 30 people in the crowd, maybe a little less. And I don't give a fuck about that because I'll go out and I'll burn that goddamn place down if there's one person sitting out there.
Hell yeah.
But I was thinking that same idea of like these. I lived in this idea that I owed this place, this promotion, something, and I'm getting to a point where I feel so shitty while I'm there, and then I'm not. And then when I'm in the ring, I'm like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. We come in the back, but then we're there for another 4 hours. I'm like, man, dude, like I wish this wasn't happening. That's when we kind of decided, hey, we need to pull back for a couple of reasons. Like, one, I want to make sure this is fun. Because I said, this is all for nothing if I'm not enjoying myself. And
Yeah.
then, and also we need to take time off because, like I said, we were doing 4 shows or whatever, and then we'd get a call to do it. Like, hey, do you guys want to ride to this, show X, a bigger show? Yeah, you guys won't get on, but do you guys want to come? We're like, oh fuck, we're already booked. And this happens so many times of kind of missing opportunities to maybe hit a different demographic because we have these commitments to these shows that they're not aiding us in any way.
Mhm.
If we don't record the matches ourselves, we'll never see them again.
Mhm.
And then when we do see them, you can't make videos out of them. Like you can make a video, you can make a little clip out of it, but it doesn't look like you're doing anything other than just being, in some field house.
Yeah.
With your entrance is a door, and you're just walking out, and you're just in a room with a
Yeah.
ring in it, and um,
There's we're at a really I talked about this with Broner. We're in a really dope ass time in wrestling because there's a the territory days are coming back. Like it really is. And the great thing is you guys have work all over the fucking country. There's somebody's gonna book you somewhere, right?
right,
But the shitty part about that is like you said, I'd say probably, and just from a fan's observation standpoint from YouTube and Fight TV and all this other stuff, some of these promotions don't give a flying fuck about promoting matches, about production, about, like, yes, you obviously, your first duty is to the fans that are in that arena or that building or the armory or whatever the case is, or that backyard sometimes, whatever the case is. But if you want talent to come back, if you want people to come back, you have to make it a show. If you're not going to make it a show, what the fuck am I coming back for? Like,
Right.
yes, I love wrestling. Yes, I love taking bumps. Yes, this is awesome. But it doesn't, there's no benefit to it. At this point, all you're doing is abusing your body for nothing.
And missing out. There's like that was my biggest thing, was like I'm missing out on things that I might not ever get back. Like I remember this just popped up in my memories, which was always kind of fresh, but it was like it was the last time my daughter did a daddy daughter dance. So it was whatever age where they stopped doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we tried to go to this like fancier place for food. It's a place called Black Rock. They were like backed up because every dad's taking their daughter there. So we ended up at Applebee's, which is my daughter's favorite restaurant. And this old man walked up and he was just like, he asked what was going on and stuff. And then he was like, "How old's your daughter?" And I was like, 9. And she was just like, he said something along the lines of like cherish these times because she'll never be 9 again.
Yep.
And those are the kind of things that are going through my mind of like, even if nothing fun, even, we just have a regular time of bowling. Even if it's just one small conversation or one line that is exchanged between me and my kids, or one picture that we take that gets to live forever in her memory or his memory. It's like I don't want to miss out on these things for a literal nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of being hurt, like we do training and coaching twice a week, and then like I said, we were wrestling 3 or 4 times a week, and it's like we were in the ring doing something 6 times a week, and that's awesome. Like I was like, this is like I feel good, I feel crisp when I'm out there, I feel like my brain is flowing the way I'd like it to flow. But then, like I said, I feel like we're missing out on things that are important, and there's matches where I'm like, yeah, this is worth missing out on fucking bowling because bowling sucks anyway. But but then there's other times where I'm like, hey, like I want to be there for this X
Yeah.
or Y, or just to walk around, take the dog for a walk with my daughter or whatever it is. And so it's like I want to make sure that the pros outweigh the cons, um, and that's where I feel like we were getting away from. But this is way off topic. But
No, you're good. Yeah, I know. I completely agree. This past just a couple of months ago in August, I took my daughter to her first wrestling show, Mission Pro show. You and I were talking about them off air, and it was their charity show for Salvation Army down here,
mm-hmm.
and it was Mission Pro along with a local school here in San Antonio called the Hybrid School of Wrestling. And my daughter, and I'm going to start getting emotional about this. I do it every time I talk about it, but my daughter looked at me and she said, "Dad, this is our thing now. Like, this is what I had with my grandmother. This is what I had with my family. And now it's me and my daughter's thing."
Right.
And it's the power of wrestling when it's good. And I don't mean it's a quality WWE production, that good. What I mean is when people care about the matches, when people care about the fans, when people give a shit about what they're doing, and they're not just out there to get their $100 or $150 or whatever it is. When people actually give a shit, I have to shout out Dulce Tormenta. She's a Texas wrestler based out of El Paso. She is my daughter's favorite wrestler. She's going for her as Halloween. She treated my daughter like a little princess. And my daughter came up to me the other day and was like, "Dad, I still want to be a wrestler." And I said, "You know what? Do whatever you can, baby. Whatever you want." And it's the dopest thing, even aside from wrestling. You and I were both in the military, and I miss the uniform. I miss it every day. But what I would never give up to go back into the military is time with my kids.
Oh yeah. See, I didn't want to leave when we left, and we were supposed to go. We were either going to go to Hawaii or Italy. So
Uh-huh.
um I was already air assault, so we were good for Hawaii. But if I passed airborne as well, we were going to Italy. And my wife was like, nope, I just want to go home. We've been gone for 5 years. Just want to be back to the family. I want to be back around my parents, all this shit. And I was just like, okay, I'll just, I'll do the National Guard. I'll come back home, whatever. And then ever since I always think is like, man, like we could have did so much, and then I miss it all the time. I miss everything about it. I was never like and it was maybe because I was a little older when I joined. So I was never the private that fucking hated everything, was miserable, and like I was never that guy. I was always like, even when shit sucked, and it sucked a lot. I
Uh-huh.
always was just like, it sucks right now, but this isn't gonna last forever, and I'm gonna look back on these times, and we're gonna love these times, like being out in the field for 2 weeks or fucking, like doing all the bullshit that we did in the moment. I always was able to look back and be like, dude, this I'm gonna look back on this and I'm gonna laugh at fucking my buddy Maynor or the time that me and my section spent together, and like I'm gonna look back on these memories and I'm gonna miss them, and I know I'm gonna miss them, so it's always so present. And then when I thought about rejoining, this was like maybe a year after I got out completely, and I was like I was missing it, and I knew that I was good at it, and I always like I loved it. And I was like, man, maybe I should just go back and maybe I can do like an MP thing, but stay in Michigan and do like an active reserve type gimmick. And I told like the first person I like talked to was my daughter, and she was like, fucking absolutely not. Like she was like, not a fucking chance. And she's the whole reason that I was like, okay, well, I won't fucking do it then, because she's the one, she's the reason that I am the person that I am, and because she was born when I was 20 years old, and way before I had anything or I was worth a fuck, or um, she's the person who made me the person I am. And um, if going back down or leaving or doing the things I had to do, that's going to make her miserable, and that's the last thing I would ever do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so we're gonna. What I want to ask is, how did you get into the military? What got you into being into the military?
So like when I was leaving school, I felt like I wanted to do it, but I was like this rebel ass punk fucking kid, and I was like, oh, I can't. No one's gonna be able to yell at me. Like I'll fucking beat the rest. I was that guy.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I got to be like 23, my little brother was gonna join, and I was just um, he kept failing the fucking the tape
Yep.
um gimmick. Uh, so he kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And one day he had to go drop off this stuff because he was doing like at the time he was overweight, he failed tape, but they were still trying to get him in, especially the recruiters.
Oh yeah.
They'll do anything to try to get these motherfuckers in there. And I was in the car with him, and he had to drop off some paperwork or something, and I walked in there with him, and I talked to Sergeant Mahoney, which was the guy who was his recruiter, then recruited me. I talked to him for like 5 seconds. Like we might have had I'd say within 60 seconds of talking to him, I knew this is what I wanted. And at the time I was working at GM, like I had a good job. We had life was relatively good. And with like I said, within a minute of having this conversation, I texted my wife and I was like, hey, I'm gonna join the army. She thought I was joking, and I was like, no, I'm dead serious. And 3 months later I was gone.
That's how it happens. So with me, it was my dad was. It's kind of a legacy thing for me. My dad was military. His dad was military. My mom's dad was military. It was kind of expected, and I was the same guy. Drill sergeant yells at me, I'm gonna punch that motherfucker in his face. And then you realize once you get into, I went to Knox for basic. You realize really fucking quick, you ain't punching a motherfucking thing in their face. It's just not happening.
Right.
And 10 years, 2 combat deployments, countless schools, combatives level 4 school, fucking, WLC, getting ready to go to BNOC, all this other shit that I learned in the military. I don't regret a second of it. And exactly what you said, like, I think about sometimes now when I was stationed at Fort Carson from 2010 to 2000, technically 13. Um, and, we used to fucking ruck up these goddamn mountains in Colorado, and you come back down and your feet are bleeding and you're fucking cold as shit because it's Colorado. And at the time, you're complaining and you're bitching and you're whining. And I was an NCO, so you had to kind of calm down your bitching and you had to, put that shit in check. And now I'm out of the Army. I've been out of the Army almost 7 years, over 7 years now. And I'm like, man, it was some of the coolest fucking shit I've ever done in my life. Ever. And I miss it. But like I said, my kids, I wouldn't trade a day with my kids for another day in the military. Like, there's nothing you could give me to give up time with my kids to go back in. Just
No.
that.
But it's, like I said, if I could have done something like a active reserve type thing where you're doing reserve shit but 9 to 5,
Mhm.
I definitely would have done that. But yeah, it's just like, dude, like after I was out for maybe 15 months, and this is after 2 foot surgeries after I broke my foot, um, and I was gone. I was wrestling, and then I got booked for 3 shows down in Georgia. So I met up with one of my buddies. I flew down. He picked me up from the airport, and I stayed at his house, and he was going to take me to all the shows and come hang out and stuff. And on the way down, um, he was like, "Hey, it's going to be an early morning because he wasn't doing the ruck, but they had a 10 mile that Friday, and there was going to be an early release." And then he was like, "Dude, you should go and like hang out and say hi to everybody." And I was like, "Dude, can I fucking do that ruck?" And he was like, "You got to be fucking joking." I was like, "Dude, I am dead ass serious." And he was like, "Well, dude, I don't know because it's different first sergeant, different, basically the whole, all the brass was different."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Let me see what they say, and if they say you can, dude, then you can." And I had to borrow boots, a ruck. We were putting fucking Sergeant Ball will love this. I had to borrow Sergeant Ball's ruck, and then we put the WCW heavyweight title on that bitch. I think it was like the ECW or something, just to put weight in there because like I was
Yep.
like, dude, we got to like I want it to be heavy. Like I don't because what I didn't want is I didn't want to see my soldiers again and then them think that I was soft. So I
Yep.
made sure that my fucking ruck was heavy because when we got there, and so now I have not my boots. I'm not ready. I haven't fucking rucked at all. And I get down there, and I think it was me. So like it was a little fucking group of 4 of us, and it was me, Gager, Maynard, and Rodriguez, and I'm just a fucking civilian idiot at this point. And we fucking blazed through this 10 mile. I think we finished like 3, 4, yeah, like 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I think there was like 1 or 2 person ahead of us. And the first one who comes up to me is a guy I'd never met before. And he was like, "What the fuck are you doing, dude?" And then and he was just like dead at it. I was like, "Dude, I love the military. Like, I loved it. I loved every minute here. I loved fucking getting home from the range and think we were going home and sitting in the fucking armory cleaning weapons for fucking 6 hours. Like, he's like, "Why'd you get out?" And I explained everything. He's like, "Yeah, that makes sense." And then, but I was like, "Dude, like I loved it. Like, and to be able to come do this with the guys who were my peers and also then like they were my soldiers. The younger guys were my soldiers and be able to be there with my buddies that like brought me in, picked me up from fucking building 1 and shit, and took me around and to be able to be with those guys and then also be with my soldiers and then shit on them when
Yep.
they're fucking dragging ass. And I'm like, bitch, I've been out of the military for fucking 15 months now, and I'm about to pick your bitch ass up and carry you over the fucking line. And so it's like, but then I had blisters on my heels that were so fucking bad, and I said like no sell it because I didn't want anybody to know,
Oh, of course.
and then so then it basically fucked the next 3 days of wrestling too because I was like I wasn't sore but my feet were killing me,
Oh yeah.
and then it was like the same weekend of WrestleMania. So then like he had a podcast, and we fucking got drunk as shit watching fucking WrestleMania. It was the best fucking time. And like I said, I think about it all the time. It's, man, I fucking miss that shit so much. I miss, like I said, it's very similar to wrestling. It's the camaraderie.
Yep.
It's like that bond that you make, like when they say embrace the suck, it's like you're embracing it together, and that togetherness bonds you so close. And it's just like you're just there's guys who I haven't seen since basic training that still we communicate as if we've been friends since we were fucking in 5th grade, and
Yeah, it's a
um
common thing is what we do, man. Like, there are guys that I haven't seen since 2013 that if I needed something right now, like my buddy Joel, if I needed something right now, he would drive his ass down from Washington to help me out. It just
right.
is. It just is what it is. It's the lifestyle. Like you said, you don't get through the military alone. That shit does not happen. You don't get through basic alone, AIT. You don't get through Deployment alone, you don't get through. Even regular active duty life, that shit is not. You are not in a vacuum. Um, so Colton Ryder wants to know. He says Wyatt wants to know which War Games was harder.
Um, Honestly, buddy, I think it's a War Games that you had seen. I think it was before you guys were coming to shows. So I've been in 3 War Games matches, and the first one was for XICW. Um, and it was like very hardcore. I guess we won that one too. Honestly, I'll say the last one, it wasn't necessarily the hardest, but um, it had the most behind it because we had built this huge thing. So like the War Games he's talking about, he's been at 2 of them, I believe. One was it was DTA versus the Kira clan. And that was at XICW. That was I think it was my very first match back after my son came home from the hospital. And then the most recent one was DTA versus Armageddon, which was at a place called Metro Pro Wrestling, which I haven't worked for a lot. I've actually only been there. I think I've only wrestled 3 matches for them ever, but I've been at a lot of shows recently, building to this big thing. And like what I love about what Metro Pro let us do is they let us really take our time. And so this is peeling back a little too much for Wyatt to understand, but they really let us take our time and really build this thing. And instead of trying to push this thing out in like 2 or 3 months, they let us take 6, 7 months and really like and I said really get everybody invested in this big, huge payoff with a guy who used to be part of DTA, who's a leader of his own group now, and we had this huge thing, and he's talking shit about my son, and then he's beating the shit out of Tommy Vendetta, trying to break his neck, and we finally meet in the ring. We finally stand across the ring each other 5-on-5, and fucking we get the redemption that we've been working for 6 months, and there's so much emotion behind it. In the ring, but also behind the scenes because we were so proud of what we put together and how we got to the finished product.
That's dope. I mean, one of the things that a lot of fans complain about right now is long term storytelling in wrestling. It seems that one of the 2 major televised companies doesn't do that anymore. 6, 7 months is a long time, especially as an independent wrestler and as an independent company. For them to let you do that and to have it pay off the way it did, that's fucking amazing.
Oh, dude, like the thing that got me, like there was a show. So like the last 2 shows that the last show prior to the match had Tommy Vendetta with a chair on his neck, Jason Hotch on the mic talking shit. I come out. I'm gonna try to save the day. His buddies are there. Or his fucking little group is there. They try to stop him from getting in the ring. He cuts a promo, said if I take another step, he's gonna break his neck. Then he says something about my son and how since God didn't take my son, he's gonna take Tommy instead. Then breaks Tommy's neck. Then slides out of the ring, runs away. I get in the ring. He's dead. I'm trying to help him. The rest of the DTA boys come out, and then we say like, "Hey, next time we see you, motherfucker, I'm gonna kill you." And the crowd is just in disbelief that these things are happening and these things are being said, and like it's just it was so like on one side it was so well put together, and we took our time and we had great communication with each other on both sides of on both teams, and made sure that we really mapped this out very carefully and really spent time with it. And then in the ring, Jason Hodge is one of the fucking best. If you know who he is, he's amazing. The things he can do and just how his presence alone is just it's unmatched, especially like in the Midwest area. He's definitely something special. And then this is when I knew it was like it was everything worked, and it was worth all this time, and it was worth all the headache of putting this all together. Is that my wife is out in the crowd. She's actually at the merch table, like selling merch and shit. And it's a half hour before the show starts. The fans are there. They're all seated, a couple hundred people, and with no prompt, no fucking, no nothing, no tease of our music, no no fucking announcer talking about matches, nothing. The crowd is shaking, chanting DTA, and a half hour before the show starts. And that's when I knew that these people, like, they were just as invested as we were in everything that we did and all the time that we took and all the things that we did to put together this big elaborate thing was all worth it, because these people, who said a half hour before the show start, are going absolutely nuts to see us rip Jason's head off and piss down his throat, and like that. And then at the end of the night, that's what happens. And then we have this big thing, and so we won't get into the whole thing, but like it was one of those things that like um that wrestling misses so often, especially at an indie level. Not to mention at a high production level, but it's like it misses, and it just, you never see it, especially like I said in our level, you never see it.
Yeah.
And just and like it was so, and like and you'll never hear me saying this kind of shit, like, but it was just like it was as close to as perfect as a thing could be. And and not, I'm not talking about matches. I'm not talking about it was a 5-star match by any means like that. I'm saying that the everything that went into it, it's one of my most proud moments. Just knowing that we pulled it off and got people invested the way we did.
Yeah, dude. Like I said, long-term storytelling is one of my favorite things. I don't do it a lot, but there's an episode that I did with my boy Bishop from TW Takes where we did a kind of a fantasy booking episode. What would happen if we had our own promotions and shit like that. And my thing has always been like, why do one 5-star match when we can do 8 months worth of 5-star matches?
Yeah.
And as a fan, it's just like, okay, so for me, I call Isaiah Broner the modern day Mike Tyson because he just gives me that vibe. That motherfucker just, when he looks at you a certain way, I feel like he's going to knock your fucking head off.
Oh, yeah.
If I put Isaiah Broner, and if you guys don't know who Isaiah Broner is, look, Death Threat Army, Isaiah Broner, everybody in that group is fucking a superstar. I don't give a shit what anybody else says. To me, everybody in that group is a superstar. Isaiah Broner is that motherfucker that you want having your back, because it ain't going to be pretty, but he's going to kick the shit out of somebody. The thing that I want more than anything in wrestling right now is Death Threat Army versus Shane Taylor Promotions.
Oh, yeah. They've been working it online here. They've been really fucking pushing it. Thanks to our the Twitter universe that we have going here. We might actually be able to see that shit happen.
There's so much money to be made all over the country, because it can be a Broner versus Shane Taylor. It could be an Aaron Orion versus O'Shea Edwards. It could be Tommy and Jack versus fucking Khan and Moses. It could be all of these things, and then a War Games at the end of it, right? Like, you could do all of this shit for a year. And that, to me, as a fan, and as somebody who's absolutely in love with the business, I'm like, literally, we can make everybody money in this motherfucker. Like, everybody can get money in here. And it would be dope because DTA is so unique and eclectic, and so is Shane Taylor Promotions. Like, it would just be one of those feuds on the indies that I don't know that there would be anything in the world that could touch that feud, a DTA versus Shane Taylor Promotions feud.
Hell yeah.
And the great thing about that feud, too, is it doesn't need to be babyface versus heel. It doesn't need to be heel versus heel. It doesn't need any of that shit. It can just be, we think we're the best. We think we're the best. Shut the fuck up and let's fight and find out.
Well, I think that's like the biggest thing. One of the biggest things I learned not too long ago, like probably 2017-ish, like Sami Callihan talked about like being a heel and babyface has like died, and this was like he said that when LeBron James plays in Los Angeles, he's a babyface. But if he plays anywhere else in any other stadium, stadium, he's a heel, but it doesn't change the way he plays.
He's just LeBron.
And exactly, and that always stuck with me. So especially like for like the younger guys, like the guys that we like mentored up in DTA, like Adam Wick um and Alex and Vendetta. Um, a lot of that was distilled in like, hey, don't, especially like in Michigan, it's like these guys are going to try to put you in this thing. Your brand is your brand is your brand.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you might have to dictate your match differently, but people aren't stupid. They have the internet. They don't want to see, and also people have a vehicle, and there's literally 5 shows that run in a fucking 30-mile radius.
Yep.
They don't want to see you 1 minute a masked character, and then 2 minutes down the road you're a babyface unmasked character, and then 2 minutes down the road from there, 4 minutes from the original place, you're a heel. Like, they don't want to see that, but what they do want to see is they want to see Alex Weir. They want to see you for who you are, and they want to know why they should love you, and then you just take that why should they love you, and you take that into your real life. Why do regular people like you? Why do you have friends? How do you have a best friend? What makes that person your best friend? Why are the people that are in your friend group attracted to you to want to be with you? And then you take those qualities and you amplify them, and that's what becomes you. That's what you are as a professional wrestler. Not I'm a bad guy now, I gotta go do bad guy shit. Oh, I'm a good guy now, I'm gonna do good guy shit. Like, just you be who you are, and that's when it's like, for me, that's when I became relatively successful. That's when DTA became successful. We stopped worrying about trying to fit and into this broken mold that a lot of companies try to, like, and like nowadays it's I would say it's more gone now than ever, but like when I first started and stuff, it was you had to be heel, and then you had to be a babyface. Maybe you should fucking make 2 Facebooks, and do try to market yourself that way. Shit like that. I was literally told that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And when I heard Sammy Callahan say that in an interview or whatever it was, it always stuck with me. It was just like, and like when he was talking about it, it was LeBron and Cleveland, but it always stuck with me as a thing. Is like, nothing is going to be more powerful than you being able to use social media, and no one wants to see you be fake in the ring or outside the ring. It doesn't fucking matter. No one wants to see you be fake. And when you're being your best self, that's when you're going to attract the most people. And I think that's what DTA does well. Saying with like the Shane Taylor promotions, that's what they do well. They're not putting on a show. I mean, they are, but they're not putting on a show. They're being themselves, and they're letting themselves and the characteristics within themselves do the talking, instead of saying like, I'm a bad guy now, I gotta go do bad guy shit.
Yeah, I think too. And I'm gonna get to some questions here in a second, but I think you're 100% right. Like, the 90s are over, the 80s are over. Kayfabe is dead. Like you said, everybody has fucking Twitter. Like, I'm a nobody podcaster from the middle of San Antonio, and I have almost 700 followers. If I can do it, everybody has. What's up, Sheena? Thank you for coming in. If I can do it, everybody has that following, so I can see. I can see that, and anybody with common sense can see, like, heel, babyface. I'm gonna like who I'm gonna like, and I'm gonna not fuck with who I don't fuck with. But it's just right now, it's cool to just have cool ass feuds. It's just cool to do that shit. And there's a question that Hollywood's World of Sports wanted to ask. How do you feel about the story with you being interim IPW champ and Karam, or I don't know how to pronounce it. Karam coming back as IPW champion. Karam.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, IPW can eat my asshole. And until they recognize me as the actual champion, I will never be back, and I will keep that title forever and ever. And they will never see the belt. They will never see the championship. Because until they recognize me as the real and actual champion, they will never see me step foot in the ring again. So they need to act right, and they need to speak about my name properly and put some fucking respect on my name.
Yeah. You better Birdman Aaron Orion, put some respect on his name. Stop playing with this man. Let's see. Colton again, Colton wanted to know at the end of that match, talking about the War Games we were speaking of earlier, did you think Jason was going to rejoin DTA?
I mean, obviously you can see that. I hope so. So he's referring to War Games, obviously. And at the end of the match, I beat Jason Page 1, 2, 3. I celebrate. I go to leave, and he has a big fight. And then basically his guys, the Armageddon guys, they start a big fight. They start beating Jason Page up. I come in running for the save because Jason is my boy, regardless of all the things that happened between us. Um, he was a DTA brother, and he'll always be a brother to me, no matter what he does. You don't have to have the fucking title. You don't have to carry the name to be a part of my family. And um, and I go back in for the save. We do some cute double team moves, reminiscent of back in the day. We think everything's fucking going good. And then sure enough, he fucking cuts a promo, says some nice shit about us and says some shit about DTA. And the next thing I know, I'm fucking licking the goddamn mat because he super kicked my head off. So I had high hopes because, like I said, and especially you guys, Wyatt and Colton, that you guys watch the blogs and stuff. You know we love Jason Page. We just wish he'd get his fucking act right.
Yeah. Sometimes it bees like that. Sometimes you just got to whoop your brother's ass. It just is what it is. Hollywood's World of Sports wants to know who in Michigan would you like to face that you haven't faced yet?
Okay, so this is happening on Friday. So on Friday for Horror Slam, myself and Jackson Stone are wrestling, and it's the first time it's ever happened. Um, and I don't know how we've been around each other for so long. So I've been wrestling since I was 18 years old. I'm 33 now. I was gone for 5 years. So I've been wrestling for like 9, 10 years actively, and we've never been in the ring together. Uh, I wasn't going to be at this Horror Slam show, and I'd seen Jackson Stone in a different show, and he said, "Hey man, I asked for a match with you, and they said you weren't available." And I was like, "Well, fuck, dude. If you want that match, I'm available." So this Friday at Horror Slam in Taylor, Michigan, we're about to meet face to face in the goddamn ring for the very first time, and the Shoeplex Sogan's going to be trying to throw my ass around the ring. You know I'm going to beat that ass, and so that would be the match I'm most excited for. It's a match I've always wanted. And never got, and I'm never the guy who's going to the promoter like, hey man, maybe you could get me this match, hey man, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. I'm not that guy. I show up like a professional, and I do what I told, and I pride myself on being that guy. I'm never trying to fucking work my way into you know brother and anybody, and I mean probably a detriment at some times, but I'm not that guy. So I'm sure that if I would have greased some fingers, on the way through, we could have had this match before. But like I said, I'm not that dude. So for this to work out the way it has, and like I said, we've been around each other for at least 5 years. This match is going to be good, and it's happening this Friday.
Sweet. Hell yeah. So, normally I keep it about an hour. I'm good to keep going if you're good to keep going.
Oh yeah, dude. Of course. Like I said, knowing that I was coming on here, I knew it was going to run long if you were going to let it run long. So if you get me talking, dude, I'll
Hey,
be
brother.
blowing this.
I'm with it. So, what I want to get into now is your beginnings as a wrestler. Where did you train? Who trained you? How did you find the school?
So at first, we were wrestling in our backyard and stuff, and that kind of got cool at school. Like when I was in high school, people started finding out we were wrestling in the backyard. We were doing stupid shit. And a friend of my brother, her name was Tila, was like, "Hey, I have friends that do wrestling at like for real, like in a real ring and stuff. Your brother should come." So one day we got a whole, with her and went to a show. It's called the MWO, the Michigan Wrestling Organization, which is considered like a backyard show, but it's where we started, and it's a place that I will always be indebted to. And we go to the show, and they have a real ring. They're in a VFW hall or some shit like that, and we're like, dude, this is fucking insane. And this is my first live wrestling event ever. And it's like a relatively bad indie show, but to me in that moment, I was like, dude, it doesn't matter. I can't fucking wait to do this. And like at the time, I'm 15 years old, and so like the next day, or like we talked to the promoter that night. His name's Jason. Like he's a great guy, great friend. Um, and we he gives us a bunch of like waivers and shit to sign. I have to go and have my mom sign these waivers because I'm too young. And then we start training. We start training with a guy named Levi Blue, and who will always be credited as like my first trainer. He's a guy who taught me a lot, and also like I said, a great friend to this day. Um, and we started training. They didn't have like a school. They would really just like they would do training before shows. They run shows every 2 weeks, and they'd do like 5 hours of training before each show. And we started and we were all referees. So me and my buddies from high school, we were all referees at first, and we just would train before the shows, and then we'd ref during the shows. And then that progressed. That after a couple months or whatever, we finally got our first matches, and we just basically just be squash matches or something. But um, it was enough for us. We didn't care. Like we just wanted to be in the ring.
Hell yeah.
That kind of led into meeting a guy named Xavier Justice, who runs a company called Pure Pro Wrestling. And he was relatively young in the business, but he was thinking about opening his own school as well. And he was like, dude, you guys have already been wrestling for 2 or 3 years. Why don't you guys just come, learn the fundamentals, kind of relearn and get some polish on the fundamentals that are missed in this company. So we did that, and we trained for like 3 months with him, and kind of like relearned how to structure a match better, and kind of had a better grasp on psychology. Like bumps and stuff, we've been doing bumps for like I said 2 or 3 years at this point. And moves and stuff like that. Those things kind of like all fell by the wayside when it came to training with Xavier Justice. It was all just about kind of like learning how to tell a story better. And then from there, it was just kind of like off to the races. And I was always just kind of like a regular guy. Like like I said, I was always a fat dude. I was like 260, 270. Never had good gear or anything, but I was always like a really good hand to be like on the lower mid card. And it wasn't until like 2012 to early 2013 that I got myself in shape, because I was really trying to give it a go. I got in relatively good shape. I had got some customized gear and stuff, and I'd won like my first title at an indie show, and I was feeling really good about myself. And then 3 months later, I left for the military, and then I was kind of done. While I was in the military, we might have wrestled like once a month, maybe. But that's where we formed DTA. So I said like the beginning was kind of just like a lot of like what would be like backyard-ish wrestling, but they were at a bar called Terry's Lounge, that burned down in the ghetto here in Flint, and that led us to doing kind of like lower level indie shows around Michigan, which was all great. We had the best time. We had like an old work van that my buddy had bought for like $400. They took all the seats and stuff out the back, and we just pile in, sitting on the floor, and we'd drive to these shows and work for $10 or free or whatever. It didn't matter. We were just happy as shit to be in the ring. And then as soon as we kind of got some steam, as soon as I started feeling good, boom, I was gone. And then and that was where DTA was born.
That's awesome. That actually hits on what I was going to ask you, where did DTA form. So that's dope. So one thing that, talking to Tommy, I learned is that you were his trainer. So how do you like training other up and coming kids? How does that, is that something that when you finally stop competing actively, is that something that you would look into doing, is training and maybe opening a school?
Oh yeah, and the boys talk about this all the time. They always are talking about how we need to open a DTA school, and I agree with them, but it's just not. I don't think it's the right time. Because when we do it, I want to do it right, and I want to do it well, and I don't think that with 6 guys who are actively wrestling, and some of us, everyone is, depending on their time of service, they're doing what they should be doing, and then you got the handful of us who are kind of like an upper level trying to make it onto like a more like a A-list indie scene. There's just no time to be able to commit to something like that properly. But I love training. I was going to bring this up when you were talking about your daughter taking her to the show. My daughter came to a wrestling show Saturday, watched this match, and the match was good. It was it was nothing great, but it was decent. And afterwards, she brought some friends to the show. And afterwards, she was just like, she came up and she was kind of like playing coy about it. She was just like, "Do you think I could be a good wrestler?" And she's 12, so she's been around wrestling for fuck. She knows bad wrestling. She knows when it's shitty, and she knows when it's good. And but she's never ever really gave a fuck ever before about seeing it, or about like when she came to shows, she would like my match. She wouldn't really give a fuck about anything else. But she never was like, "Oh my god, I gotta go to the show. I want to come to your show." She was never like that. And when she was super little, she was. But since she's been older, she never really gave a fuck. She came up after the show and she's like, "Do you think I could wrestle?" And I was like, "Bailey, you could do anything." And Monday, so yesterday, was her first day coming to our little school we have, the Pure Pro Wrestling has. And I couldn't have been like, I was already like my heart was just so full when she had first brought it up. I was like, dude, the idea that she would even want to, really, like even if she didn't like it, at least like she was like, my dad is really good at this, and I think I could be really good at it, and that could be like a thing where he could train me how to wrestle, and I could perform for my friends and stuff, and like for her to think that was cool, already had me like so happy in my heart.
Yeah.
Um, but then when she came, the things that she was able to do, and like I said, she was never a kid who came in and like rolled around in before the show. She was never one of the kids who got around and bounced around the ring and shit like before the shows and shit. And she was never a kid who expressed like a lot of want or desire to get in and fuck around in the rings. And the things she was able to do within 40 minutes just was mind blowing to me. Because it's like, and her and I were having this conversation on that she was at a football game today. We were driving home, and it was just like within 5 minutes she was able to hit the ropes like a pro, like things that kids in the school, and not just kids, adults,
Hmm.
still haven't figured out. And just like she did it once, fucked it up, did it twice, fucked it up. We talked about it, talked about different things to think about. And like I said, I've seen it so many times. I've seen so many students hit ropes, and I've seen so many professionals hit ropes. So, like when I see something, I was like, okay, well, think about this, think about this, think about, you don't like how I feel like I'm always relatively good at breaking down
Hmm.
how to explain these steps that go into wrestling, and like I said, within 5 minutes she's hitting the ropes like she's a pro at it. And then we didn't do regular bumps, but we did what I always call it Eddie Guerrero bumps because they did them, him and Rey Mysterio, like in the Eddie Guerrero DVD when they were kids. They were doing these bumps where they're basically doing sit ups and then snapping back and
Yeah.
bumping.
Hmm.
Um, so we always do that as like for students when they're first starting out. That's where we start the bump set because then you get the fundamentals of how you want to land and how it needs to sound. And we had her do those. And it was like I said, and we have people who've been in the ring for three months who couldn't do it, and immediately she just hit it right away. And I was just like, and we were talking about it today. I was like, Bailey, if you really really wanted this, just in and I know I'm your dad, so I'll always be biased, but I was just like, you can do this, like you. And her and I are super similar too, like with the way that we perceive things. Um, but it's just like uh, this our imaginations are very similar. Our creative mind is very similar. And for wrestling, even though she's never been a huge wrestling fan, wrestling is still art, and her brain works in that same way of like, I can see it and I can recreate this art and I can understand why it's art and not just, I don't see it as wrestling, just a couple of people playing around the ring. I understand how to see it as an art, or an art form. Um, and we did that, and we also were training other people at the same time. And so that, like I said, dude, I'll fucking talk your ear off about some bullshit, but
You're good, bro.
I love it, dude. Like I love it. And I started helping out, like just I did like a striking seminar for Pure Pro Wrestling, um, because like I throw really good strikes, I suppose. And so the promoter asked me to come and do like a strike seminar, and like and people would pay to come in and stuff like that. And we had like 40 people there, and we're talking about the fundamentals of how to throw strikes and do strike exchange and different strikes, forearm, euros, punches, whatever. Um, and we went through this whole thing like 4 hours of just like talking about punches and shit like that. And then everyone gave such glowing reviews about it, and I was like, dude, like I loved it. Like I loved every moment of it, every stupid question and every like everything about like the whole thing. And maybe it took me back to being in the army and having soldiers and having to explain stupid shit about cleaning a breach or fucking some bullshit. But like, um, I just like I remember like I just like I remember that feeling of being like, man, I love doing this, like the
Hmm.
training aspect of it. And then I started helping out, and I just do it every once in a while. I might fill in if one of their like normal coaches canceled. Then it turned into then I was a coach all the time, and then I had too many people in my classes. So they're like, hey, can you do 2 days? And then that turned into doing it twice a week. And then COVID hit, and they all shut down. And they just kind of picked up recently. Um, but yeah, it's something that I love, and even like some days I'm thinking, it's time to go out to training or whatever, and I'm dreading it. I'm like, man, I'm having such a bad day, and I get there, and then we bump around a little bit, and just like if one of the students are working on like a shine or a comeback, or they're working on a set they want to do, and to see it like click in their fucking eyes and see like this to see that like aha moment of understanding why you do something, or the purpose of like, and it's never about the moves. I don't give a fuck about the moves. If you know the bumps, and you know how to do any move in the fucking in the book.
Yeah.
um and and like I always like, and I always feel like I'm like an asshole talking about it, but like I'm a moves guy. Like I'm always like, dude, like I'm the motherfucker. If you watch my matches, like we're doing a lot. We're gonna be doing a bunch of shit. We're gonna be hitting each other hard as fuck. We're gonna be out here wilding out. We're gonna have we're gonna have a bunch of false finishes. We're gonna be doing all this fucking shit. And then when I talk to these students who are here because they watch my matches, I'm like, dude, like these moves don't fucking matter. You gotta know why we're doing them, and then you're gonna learn how to set them up, and why these false finishes matter, and why you're so intrigued, and why you're so like fucking, and Sami Zayn's the best at it. Like I remember being at an ROH show, and it was fucking El Generico versus Marufuji, and I remember being 18 years old or however it was, standing on the chairs watching this pre-show match, like, and it was, I just remember like this praying that the fucking match wouldn't end, and just they'd be like, dude, please kick out, please kick out, please kick out, just because I wanted to keep it going, and that's always what I strive to do. When we're having those styles matches, and that's always what I strive to make people feel when we're at training. Is like, understand the why. Because if you understand the why, then it doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what move you're hitting. If you make yourself believe it, then everyone else is going to believe it, and then it's going to be worth so much more.
Yeah, one of my things as a fan is psychology. You and I know this. And Tommy and I talked about this. As people who are trained to fight, like I'm not an MMA fighter, I'm not special forces, I'm none of that shit. So, the military, the general military doesn't get that super retarded like Jason Bourne training, right? It's not that. But we are prepared to hand-to-hand combat should need arise. What wrestling is lacking nowadays is the ability to make somebody like me suspend disbelief and say, "Oh, that motherfucker punched him in his face."
Right.
Back in the '90s, when Scott Hall used to be the best at just selling a punch in the mouth, because he would crumple and it would just make you look like, "Oh my god, what the fuck is going on in here?" And wrestling is missing that. But what's cool about, and this is not just a DTA thing, but you guys do it really well, is we talked about it with Broner, I talked about it with Jack, I talked about it with Tommy. You guys are snug as fuck. Like that match you had with Josh Alexander, I watched it and I was like, these motherfuckers are not having headaches the next day. There's no way they don't have giant fucking headaches the next day. Because it looked, the forearms y'all were hitting each other, and then there was like a spinning back elbow he hit you with. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. I know what pro wrestling is. And for me to sit back and say, Jesus, that's what one of my favorite things about DTA is, whether it's you, whether it's Kenji, whether it's Jack, whether it's fucking Tommy, Isaiah, when you guys fight, it's somebody's getting their fucking ass whipped, whether it's you or the other person. It's going to be a motherfucking fight. And that's one of my favorite things that you guys do.
I mean, that's like one thing I always took away from training with Tyson Dukes was like, he is all about the realism. Like, nothing.
Kenji said he's going to pile drive the fuck out of you.
Nothing else matters. Like when you're chained, doesn't matter. And he's big on chain. He's like where I take a lot of my like inspiration of like how to perform chain and how to wrestle on the mat is from like training with him. Was just like, and I use it in my training now too, is just like, for you to know how to sell it, you have to know how it feels. So if you're in a wrist lock and you're yelling at the top of your lungs like, like that's not how a wrist lock feels, dude. Like when a bouncer's throwing you out the fucking club and he has you in a wrist lock, are you screaming like a baby? Like, no, you're not. You're wincing in pain. You're trying to fucking get your fucking limb untwisted, and you're in that fight because you're not gonna let this motherfucker treat you like that. And that was like the biggest thing I learned from Dukes is like you got to be in the fight, and it's gonna be grimy, and you gotta like, and yes, it's a give and take. But there's stages, there's steps to and perform these things and to perform them crisp and look good and look clean. But like when you're chaining and shit like that, and same as like when you're throwing strikes, it's like wrestling. They say like wrestling is a dance, wrestling is a dance. When you're in there, fucking Stone Cold said the shit. Fucking and he's my damn dad. The second that he walks through that curtain, it's fucking real to him. And so you can call it a fucking dance, and I'll call it a dance too, because what we're doing is we're putting on a fucking show. But the second that we're in there, I want to make sure like that I believe. So it can't be a fucking dance to me. So regardless if we're throwing strikes, regardless if we're wrestling, or if like the same as you were saying earlier with the combatives, like I was fucking a combatives coach. I was a combatives captain of our team. We traveled. We did jiu-jitsu tournaments. We're fucking snapping heads, winning gold fucking medals everywhere we went. We went to all these Naga tournaments and all these different shit, and we were fucking smothering dudes to death because that's what we fucking love. And like my platoon sergeant, he was a fucking purple belt, and he came in and he was like, "Hey, you motherfuckers are gonna know how to fight because once we go somewhere, you guys have to fucking know. It's not a joke." And he was a guy who like got caught in fucking some hand-to-hand combat situations when he was in Afghanistan, and it really like it like stayed with him forever because he knew how to take care of himself. But they were in situations where they're and they talk about it in all the drills you expect. Like I think it's combative level 2, where you're doing like the close quarters combat weapons in the hallway, shit like that. He was in those situations in real life, and he knew how important they were, and he knew how soft these motherfuckers were. And he was like, if we do go and end up in these situations, and luckily we never were in any situations where we were in hand-to-hand combat with anybody, but like, and I said like, thank God we weren't. But you have to know how to defend yourself, and then we take that to wrestling. It's like you have to know how to perform it right before you can perform it for wrestling, because when you don't know how and you're pretending, everyone knows you're fucking pretending. I don't want to pretend hit somebody. I want to fucking hit them. And I don't want to pretend put someone in a hammerlock. I want to fucking put them in a hammerlock, and I want everyone in a fucking 3-mile radius to understand that it's not a fucking game to me.
Yeah, I absolutely. It's one of the things that I like to say is like, I'm really getting into like New Japan stuff and Josh Barnett's like what does he call it, Bloodsport and shit like that, because people are being safe, but those motherfuckers are hitting the shit out of each other. Like obviously you're not going in the ring or the pit like Broner did and fucking Tommy did. Jesus Christ, those two fucking lunatics. But you're not going in there with the intent to cripple somebody or maim somebody or even, injure anybody, right? But like you said, for me to believe it, for another combat vet, and not even just a combat vet, but for somebody who's 35 years old, who's lived life, who has scars all over his fucking body, for me to believe it, I need you to believe it. And the only way you're going to believe it is if when that motherfucker chops your chest, he fucking chops the shit out of your chest.
Right.
And Colton just pointed out that you were in the pit also. You're a fucking lunatic just as much as the other two.
Oh, dude, I thought I was going to hate that shit. And I fucking love that shit so much.
Dude,
like, I miss the pit now. That we're like I was nervous going into it, and now I think about the pit every goddamn day. Like, I'm waiting on a fucking call to be in that motherfucker again.
I talked to Broner about that because I watched Broner shit in it, and I was like, I said, what the fuck was going through your mind? He was like, I like to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, and at one point I was wrestling Aaron Williams, who's like a great pro wrestler, also new to the pit. And he has like a karate based gimmick, a lot of kicks, a lot of strikes and stuff like that. So like my immediate thing was just like, I want it to feel like Fight Club. I want it to feel like we're about to fucking throw down, and it's a guy who's me. Like I'm not. I would say I'm a technical brawler, but I'm precise in what I'm doing. I'm not just fucking rampage, fucking smashing all over the place against a guy who's a very technical striker. And I wanted to have that feel. And at one point, and I fucking hit him with this backbreaker, and I come down on this motherfucker with these goddamn hammer fists, and I am like, I had bruises all up and down where he got his forearms up. Uh, I come down on this motherfucker with these forearms or like these hammer fists on him. Like he takes his backbreaker, I basically throw him into the dirt, and as soon as he turns over, I'm already on top of him, and I come down and I'm just throwing these motherfuckers as hard as I can, and there's this. There's fucking dust flying everywhere. There's a bunch of fucking crazed fans standing around, and you're in the middle of fucking nowhere. And oh, dude, it just like I said, I've been thinking about the pit since I left that bitch.
So let's go on to a little something that's kind of opposite from the pit. Your match with Josh Alexander. I literally rewatched it right before we started, scarfing down my dinner, and I was watching your match with Josh. The one on YouTube isn't that great. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, something hard cam. It is what it is. Yeah, hard cam Frio. I appreciate him putting the matchup online. So I sat down and watched it, and I was like, it's cold as fuck right there.
Oh,
like,
dude, it was. So there's so many things that goes into this match. Like, it's for me, it's disappointing. I know the match it's good for a wrestling match, but it's cold as shit. It's outside. It's late at night. Dew is now set on the ring. It's slippery as shit in the ring, on the ropes, everything. So there's so many things that we had to change on the fly that really changed the style of match that we wanted to have. And like what you can't see is there's like 600 people there, and they're not. I would say close to 300 people. They said 600, so I'm going to assume it's half that.
yeah.
And they're not hardcore wrestling fans, but they are casual wrestling fans. And so there's so many things that went into like changing the match on the fly, and changing things right before we went out, just kind of knowing the obstacles that were in our way. And like there were so many cool things that we took out for safety. There's so many things that we took out just because of how we had spots off the ropes. We had spots that were kind of indicative on being able to move precisely and having good footing. And there was like, so we for me, it's disappointing on that aspect. I know it's a good match. It's not my best match, but it's a match that I can't wait to have again. And hopefully in a facility that regulates temperature and shit like that. But Josh Alexander's always been a guy I looked up to, and it was worth so much just to be around him. I've been on shows with him, but never like spending quality time with him and kind of just hanging out with him. And I know I didn't even let you ask any questions, but I'll just fucking get at this last thing and we'll go back into it.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I learned from that match is that what we're doing, like DTA, is right. Like, it got to a point, especially where Tommy and I were traveling together. We were super hot doing tag team shit. We were traveling all over the country into fucking Canada. We were wrestling for the top places in Canada, the top promotions in Toronto. We're doing so well. And then COVID hit and everything kind of went to shit. And then that kind of plays like a mind games of like, why aren't we getting used? Why aren't we getting brought back to these places and all these different things? And then we had this conversation, and it was never a thing that I took seriously, but it was always just like we need to be more selfish, was like basically like the idea is like we need to protect ourselves, like, and we need to make sure that we are looking like we look good. We got to be more selfish in the ring because we're so giving. And we always make sure that whoever we're with, it doesn't matter if they've had one match or fucking 6,000 matches, we're going to try to give whoever that is, no matter who it is, no matter their ability, no matter if they deserve it, we're going to try to make sure that they walk away from this match feeling like they had the best match they could possibly have. And that's a fucking badge of honor that everyone in DTA would wear. And we had this conversation of like, dude, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we need to protect our brand and make sure that we're looking good. We can't keep fucking, bowing out to these guys and they're going to make us look like shit. And Josh Alexander knew me, but he didn't know me well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've been on shows with him, but I assume he's maybe watched me wrestle 2 or 3 times. And he never once gave a fuck about himself, how many bumps he had to take, how he was going to look. It was always about me. For him, it was what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? Where do I need to be? I will bump all over this bitch for you. And he essentially just like he made me and us like it re-energized like my spirit to say like, dude, like we're on the right path. Like Josh Alexander's fucking in the main event of Impact's biggest show. He's been the fucking best, one of the best Impact or fucking X Division champions to recent date. He's had fucking, I've watched the fucking TJP Iron Man match at least fucking 10 times. And that motherfucker is now standing in front of me, and I'm just some fucking asshole. And he never once, not for a fucking second, thought like, hey, I need to make sure I do this. I need to protect myself. I need to protect my fucking gimmick. I need to protect my brand. I'm wrestling for the fucking Impact heavyweight championship. I can't let this fucking guy beat me. Like, never once did those things even come through his fucking mind. And even when they did come up, he was like, no, fuck that, dude. You're going over. I don't give a fuck. And it just like I said, it certified in my head like, hey, dude, like it might take us longer to get where we're going, but what we're doing is what this motherfucker, who's the baddest motherfucker in wrestling right now, the best in the fucking world, he's treating me like this. And like I said, I'm just some fucking asshole. And if he's doing it, then that's how I want to be. I don't want to change the way we're gonna do. Like I want to keep being that guy who's gonna. I always want to be giving. I always want to be helpful. I always want to make sure that I'm giving a 110% in the ring and backstage to help out the guys around me, to help build them up. They're the girls that fucking and make them better for different matches, make them better in my matches, and that's the way I want to fucking leave my legacy, regardless if my legacy takes me to fucking WWE, fucking Impact, AEW. Like I want my legacy to be like I'm a motherfucker who gave a fuck, and I will give anything to make you better, and I will do anything to fucking have a match that people are going to remember and give a fuck about.
Yeah, you guys, man, there are certain spots where you can tell, like I said, as being somebody who's jaded and as being a 35, pretty much a 35-year fan of the business, there's certain spots where you can tell the footing wasn't sure and slipping and, just stuff like that. But the reason I called it a 5-star match is because neither one of you looked like you were forcing your way into shit. You know what I mean? Like, it looked like, okay, we're going to beat the fuck out of each other, but we're going to be on equal playing fields when we beat the fuck out of each other. And to hear you confirm that, and I've seen I got to see Josh wrestle in Pele Pro. He wrestled this kid named, what was his name? Izzy James. And I went into the match and I was just tweeting like, okay, Josh Alexander is here. This match is going to be dope. When I tweeted after the match was, holy Jesus fucking Christ, this match was fire as fuck. And it was Josh doing his shoot stuff and putting people in holds. But you could kind of tell he liked to take the bumps. He liked to take an ass whooping. He liked to give the other guy the shine, and he liked to give him, as much as he was taking. Josh isn't going to let you just run over him and fucking steamroll him and you're going to be the only one who shines, but he's going to give what he gets. And to hear you confirm that is dope as fuck as a fan, just like, okay, cool. It's the carny aspect of wrestling is kind of going away, and it's becoming a business, and it's becoming, hey, look, let's all sit at this fucking table and eat together. Why do I have to, be this weird fuck who's going to steal money out of your pocket? Let's just eat. Let's eat together. Is that what you're starting to notice is the change in the wrestling industry where it's going from everybody looking out for themselves or DTA is just about DTA to now everybody's like, well, fuck it. If DTA shines and they help me shine, we can both shine. Have you started noticing that transition?
I mean, it's definitely more positive now than like when I first started. There's still guys that are around now that are very like single-minded, and if you get one up on them, then they have to somehow they're going to go brother motherfucker to try to like make sure that they get this back, or they're going to go in politics to make sure that they don't lose. or they're going to be talking shit to try to just like bring you down to make themselves feel better behind the scenes and hope that you don't find out. Um, like I get that kind of shit all the time, and um, but those are now those people are the outliers because like and that's the culture we try to bring is like we are DTA, we are our own, like we do give a fuck about ourselves, but we are not alone in that. Like we want to make sure that whatever we're doing, no matter what match we have, no matter where we are, it doesn't matter if we're open, closing, doesn't matter if we have fucking 5 minutes or 20 minutes, like we are gonna have that same mentality we were just talking about. Is like if I've been wrestling for 10 years and I'm regarded as one of the fucking best in the Midwest and you've been wrestling for 4 minutes, I'm going to meet you in the middle, but you are going to fucking be elevated to a level that you didn't know you could. You're going to walk away having that like fucking aha moment of like, dude, I wrestled this dude, and he's not a dude, he's a fucking kid, but his name's Solo and he's fucking very good. He's very talented. And I had this match with him, and that was the first thing that popped up on Facebook and Twitter. Is like, hey, this fucking kid can really go. And he'd been having a bunch of matches around town of like and this happens a lot with young guys anyway. But it's like you get caught up kind of wrestling the same 2 or 3 people over and over and over again, and they just kind of throw you in a match because you help set up the ring, and these kids are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're grinding it out, paying their fucking dues or whatever. And they get thrown into some random matches and shit like that, but they find themselves wrestling the same couple people. And I'd seen Solo do a handful of matches where I was like, man, dude, he fucking is super talented. So then, at a show that I was on, they were like, hey, who do you want to wrestle? And they gave me like a fucking list of people, and I picked basically the lowest person on the totem pole. And I was like, I want to wrestle this kid because I feel like if he could just feel how it is to be in the ring with somebody who's been around for a while, it's going to change the trajectory of where he's going. And maybe I could be, even if I help him make it to where he's going next, if I could get him to that next step, if I could get him there a fucking half a percent faster, then I've done my fucking job. And I feel like there's a lot more people like that nowadays than there ever was. And like I said, and I feel like the fucking negative Nancy people are definitely more of an outlier than ever before.
Yeah, I think it's definitely changing, even from a fan's perspective, where you see prime example is Thunder Rosa. Like, this woman is busting her balls all over the world. Philly. I mean, she was at GCW in a match with all dudes except her. She's been on AEW elevating women who have had almost virtually no TV time. Then she's going back and running Mission Pro and running Dog Pound Dojo and doing this and doing that. It's different now because people are starting to realize if we don't groom the next class, there isn't a next class. You can't have a future of the business without cultivating the future of the business.
Right.
And it's when you and I were in the Army, we were taught to learn the guy above us job and to teach the guy below us our job. And that's how it feels like wrestling is evolving now, where people are like, okay, Thunder Rosa, not only is she a fucking worker, Aaron Orion is not only a fucking worker, but they're doing this at the next level. They're teaching, they're helping. Thunder Rosa's booking her own shows, and she's, she's training, she's running a training school. But at the same time, she's teaching these women how to book, she's teaching commentators. Like, that's, one of my dreams is to get into commentating in the wrestling industry. I'm too old and my body is way too fucked up to actually take bumps. But to be a commentator is one of the things, and she does that. Dog Pound Dojo does that, and Hybrid School of Wrestling does that. And it's just it's dope. The changes that are in the wrestling business now versus when, say, like a Chris Jericho got in. Jericho always talks about how how when he broke into the business, essentially he was like, fuck off, kid. Get out of here. Like, you don't have any wrestling experience. Right. Why would I mess with you? So we're going to wrap up here in a second, but there's 2 more questions I got for you. First, and this might be a little bit hard to single out. I want 5 men and 5 women, your dream opponents. It can be alive, dead, current, retired, doesn't matter. 5 men, 5 women. Because I know you've done some intergender stuff.
Oh yeah, we definitely have. I was supposed to wrestle Alex Zane at a show coming up, and he canceled for it was either Impact or something like that was running the same day, so he couldn't make the show or something like that. Um, and I was asked like, hey, they're trying to work out a deal with some GCW guys. Like, who do you want? And I was like, dude, if you could get like fucking Allie, that would be super dope. Because she's definitely one of my favorite people to watch. And it could just in um in recent time, uh, when it comes to if I was thinking intergender type shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But like so, I mean, I could rattle off relatively quick. Probably Stone Cold, 100%. If I could do a tag team gimmick, if we could get the New Age Outlaws in that bitch, um, and then the Young Bucks for sure, and then I think LAX. Like, honestly, when it comes to tag shit, I always think like, man, like there's so many matches to be had out here. So I don't go back that far. Um, and I don't really think my wrestling knowledge goes back that far because, like I said, prior to '96, wrestling hardly even existed to me.
Mm-hmm.
So like fucking, and a lot of the guys, I guess, they're still around now. Some of them, I mean, like the rest, but like fucking New Age Outlaws for sure, LAX for sure, fucking Stone Cold, uh, those are, and then I mean those would probably be my guys over on that side. And so if we're thinking of 5 women, I fucking Lita, of course.
That would be
I mean,
dope as
taking that
fuck.
fucking Hurricane Rana out here and this motherfucker. And then, like I said, like Allie, um, I've wrestled Jody Threat a couple times, but she's always one of my favorite people. Uh,
You
and
versus
then,
Thunder Rosa would be dope as fuck too.
yeah, that would be very sweet. I always wanted to have a match with Kylie Ray. Um, uh, One time, and this is has no, we're gonna get off subject again, so I'm gonna wrap it up, but I'll give it quick. One time at a show, she had cookies for whatever reason. She was just like, uh, she was like, "Hey, do you want a cookie?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I was like, "Oh, thank you for the cookie." And she was like, "Thank you for the cookie." And then we had the stare that lasted, and it was the most awkward. Like Kylie's just like the nicest person of all time, and it was just like, the most awkward answer. And she just stared, and I just like it always like it was the most wholesome moment I've ever had with a person that I didn't know, and I was just like, man, I'll remember this forever and ever. It's just this moment of just her not knowing what to say and what to do after she replied, and like I was just like, I will remember this forever. But she's fucking awesome. Um, and she was always the person like when I first met Jody, when she first started like finished training at Super Kick, she was on the road with us a lot doing DTA shit, and she was always like, "Who do I watch? Who do I watch?" And always the fucking Kylie Ray was always the first person. I was like, "Go watch this motherfucker. She's a bad mother." And then cheerleader Melissa, also would be another person on the list for sure.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So there's two guys that I actually there's three that I think you would have real dope ass chemistry. Well, fuck it. There's four now. Now that I'm thinking about it. Nick Gage is one. I think you guys would fucking. It would be an insane match. I know Tommy's the death match guy in DTA,
Yeah,
but I think that would just be dope as fuck because I think Nick Gage is underrated. The second is Effie.
oh
Effie
dude,
is.
me and Effie fucking wrestled a ton, dude.
Oh
Uh,
man.
Effie and I came up together in Georgia. Um, If you actually search out, you can find this fucking insane. I'm sure he still has it on his YouTube. If you search up Aaron Orion versus Effie, he does this promo. It's one of his first crazy Effie promos that you'll ever
Okay.
see. This was when he was still finding himself. His character, like when I first met Effie, maybe had like 2 or 3 matches, and he showed up to this show called Explosive Pro, and we just like clicked immediately. And his gimmick was being this like Southern dude who didn't know he was gay,
Mm-hmm.
and like so he would be out here because we were in Georgia, and he'd be saying all this crazy shit, but he was super flamboyant. He's like he didn't understand he was gay, and like that was his gimmick. And like um and we had this big feud. It was him versus the Death Row Army, which is me and Jamie Hall, um and he cuts this promo, and like I said, it's the most Effie thing you'll ever see. It's the most Effie thing that Effie's ever done, and it's him with his dog. It's two people hanging out, like making out in the background. It's just the craziest thing ever. But like, I would literally rather wrestle Effie up now, um, because like I said, with me and Effie, we wrestled fucking 30 times over the course of knowing each other. But they were always, like I said, it was always like in the Effie's first 6 months maybe of wrestling.
That dude is so much better than I think even he realizes. And the positivity that he puts out in the wrestling community is just a fucking fantastic thing to see.
Oh, dude, my
Yep,
daughter loves him. Like,
I fucking
um,
love him so much. His big gay wrestling brunch, that shit was so fucking dope. To just him just say, you know what? Fuck it all. Fuck anybody who hates me because I'm gay or who hates this person because they're transgender or whatever. You can suck my dick. I'm gonna be me and go fuck yourself. I think he's just one of the best people in the world. The last two that I would love to see you fight, Savage Gent, Victor Benjamin, because that guy's fucking fantastic,
oh, that's a bad motherfucker. Yeah.
and a kid from Pele Pro Chandler Hopkins. Oh my god, that kid is. You talk about
I
a
just shouted like
superstar.
before he did anything for AEW and shit. I seen like the unicorns were down there and recorded the Pele Pro, and I seen that motherfucker, and I was like, I put like a post on Twitter, and I was like, dude, these are like my top 3 or 4 favorite guys that I like. And this isn't me like shouting out my boys. My boys know I love them. These are guys. And it was Mike Outlaw, who's a St. Louis-based guy. He's a bad motherfucker. And I've been on shows with him, but we're not friends by any means. And then Chandler Hopkins was one of them. Daniel Garcia. Um, those are a couple guys that listed off like off the top of my head that were like fucking guys that I don't know that I find myself watching their shit. Um, just because like I enjoy what they do, and um, and I enjoy the way they put matches together. I enjoy like their just the juice when they bring that fucking juice to the ring. Back to a fucking quick Effie story.
Yeah, yeah.
This is something that this
I'm
is what
here
I think
for
one of the
all the
reasons
Effie stories. I'm good with it.
that fucking like drew. I think it helped draw my daughter kind of into wrestling more. Was just like um she was like over my shoulder or whatever. I was looking at Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and Effie's shirts popped up, and it was the wrestling is gay, with like the like statue on the back ones, the ones that
Mm-hmm.
he was donating to the like the LGBTQ
Yep.
fucking like homeless shelter or whatever in Florida. And she was like, "What the fuck is this shirt?" And I was like, "Oh, it's my buddy Effie." I was like, "You know Effie?" And she was like, "I have no idea who it is." But when we were in Georgia, she was super little. And I was just like, dude, Effie's been at your fucking birthday parties and shit. Like, you know him, you just don't know him. I was like, but he's what's made like I remember when I first started, there was a dude who was like secretly gay in the MWO, and that like when people found out that he was gay, people were like, "Oh, I'm not wrestling this motherfucker." And I was like, dude, I'll fucking wrestle this guy, dude. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it was such a stigma to be gay.
Yeah.
And like Effie, along with other people, obviously, but he's made that cool. Like, and he's made it like he's destigmatized like being gay or being any of those in the wrestling community, and he's obviously fucking like he's a goddamn insane person.
Oh,
If you ever spend any fucking time with him, uh,
you can tell just if you guys have never watched an Effie match, there are matches. This dude is gay, like straight up gay. He's out of the closet, so it's not like we're outing Effie as gay, right? There's a match, and I can't remember who the lady is, the woman is. She's a black female wrestler, and essentially she's like twerking on Effie on a bar top, and like he's like thinking about like, do I smack that ass or am I gay? Like, it's some of the most stupid, funny shit ever. But it's just like Effie is fucking insane. He's fucking nuts in the best way possible, and that dude deserves all the success in the fucking world. And I can't wait till somebody takes a chance on Effie. Impact, AEW, NXT, I don't give a shit. And people get to see it's 2021. Who gives a fuck if you like vagina, you like cock, whatever you like. Like that's it's irrelevant. Like just be who you
But dude,
are.
like that's like my daughter's gone through now. Like she's been fucking. She's like, I don't know, maybe I'm gay, maybe I'm fucking trans, maybe I'm this. And I was like, Bailey, dude, at the end of the day, and this was like her coming to her, like her parents, my mom, like her mom, my wife, and me. It was like her freaking out, like, oh my god, like I don't know if I can tell you guys, I don't know this, I don't know how you guys are gonna feel. And she finally like tells us, and we're like, and now it's got to the point where it's like I don't give a fuck. Like as long as you're being the best you that you could possibly be, it doesn't matter. And it's like, and honestly, the more weight you put into it, the more I am not going to fucking like no matter how much you want me to fucking like I don't know like maybe it's because like the friends that she has and the type of parents that her friends have, like she was like, oh, like we're not going to be accepting, we're not going to be this, we're not going to be that. And I was just like, really, like none of that fucking matters to me. Like I don't give a fuck what you want to be, what you want to do, as long as you're being the best you and as long as you're happy. I don't give a fuck what you do. And because at the end of the day, like none of that's my fucking business. Like I
Hmm.
mean, it's my business because you're my daughter, but it's not my business to tell you what you can and can't do. It's not my business to tell you who you can and can't be. I want you to be happy. And the last thing I want to do is try to tell you something that it could literally fucking it could hinder your life. It could hinder who you are as a person for you to be fucking feeling like you have to hide this thing from the world or your parents or anything. Like, I want you to be the most open and the most honest person that you can be to me, and that's all that fucking matters. And in the second that you let those kind of things hinder your life, then you're not living up to your fucking potential. So fucking just spend your time accepting who you are and don't put the fucking stock in like I'm gay, I'm this, I'm this. Like you'll be who you are, and you don't need the fucking label. You don't need all this bullshit. Like you just be who you are. It doesn't matter what you fucking like. At the end of the day, if you're being the best you, if you're being the best person that you can be, then I'm gonna fucking love you no matter what. And and that goes for anybody. I don't give a fuck who you are, and I
Yeah,
don't give a fuck what you like.
yeah,
As long as you're out here just trying to do your fucking best, uh, I'm gonna have love for you.
yeah. Absolutely, I completely concur, man. So, last question: what is the future? What does the future hold for Aaron Orion and DTA?
The plan is honestly it's going to fuck. I mean, it's going according to what we could hope for. We spent a couple hours kind of breaking down our goals and shit for the upcoming year, and we're getting back to Toronto. We're getting back to Canada next month, or we're back on the road. We're doing all the shit that we need to be doing, and my goal is just to do what we're doing at a fucking bigger level and get the eyes on me and the Bumblebee boys and fucking and not sell them what you might see in the match, but sell them who we are. Sell them in the idea of the what's got us to the fucking dance. Like yes, we're a bunch of guys who are good fucking wrestlers. We're a bunch of guys who are relatively good people. We do our fucking best, and we're gonna falter. We're gonna stumble at times. But we're DTAs. We're more than just the fucking guys who are gonna get in the ring and beat your fucking ass. We're we're guys who fucking gave away 100 fucking bikes for free to kids on Easter. We're a bunch of guys who stood out in the cold giving out fucking turkeys to to or getting not even just turkeys, giving out full Thanksgiving meals and shit before Thanksgiving to make sure that like families in need, but our fans didn't go without. We're the same motherfuckers who are taking up Christmas presents to the hospital for kids who are stuck in the hospital, and that is what I want to sell. That's what I want people to know. Like when you bring us to a show, when you fucking bring us around, like you're bringing these motherfuckers, and like you're bringing the motherfuckers who are gonna march through your town, fucking destroy your villages, tear down your fucking houses, kill everybody in sight. But we're still gonna be handing out the kids. We're still gonna be handing out candy to the kids on the way through, and like because that's who we fucking are as people. That's who we are in the ring. That's who we are out the ring. Um, and I said like, and I hope that that takes us to the next level because I feel like if you don't know us and you see us from the outside, you're going to see some bad motherfuckers. You're going to see guys who are really good wrestlers who love fucking getting in fist fights for fun. Um, but I always think what's going to take us to the next level is understanding who we are, understanding the Bump and Feed Boys Club, the shit that we do, and follow us on the vlogs and find out who we are. By fucking, like, we have plans on doing a fucking DTA after parties for shows. We're gonna do fucking like stand up and Q&As and shit like this, or um, and that's what I want for 2022 is to really get into more of that shit, while doing the thing that got us to the fucking dance, and that's the love for wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kenji says world domination and buying all the goddamn cheesecake in the world.
He
I'm
knows I love cheesecake.
I'm with all of that shit. Look, I'm I was a fan of DTA just through watching clips and being wrestling. I've become a fan of each of you guys individually because of the people that you are. And it's very rare. They tell you, what's that famous saying, don't meet your heroes because you'll be disappointed. It's cool when you see somebody that you watch and you see somebody like, oh, this is a bad motherfucker, and then you talk to him, and you guys are all good dudes. You, Broner, Tommy, Jack. Though you guys are the four that I've had on my show so far. Kenji, you're next. Don't get it twisted. You're coming on next, motherfucker. You are next. And anybody else associated with DTA is, trust me, I'm gonna get you on my show. But it's it is it is a real blessing and a real honor to you guys to be as good as you are and to be as awesome people as you guys are. Um, to come on here and open up and be comfortable and not just be, oh, I'm Aaron Orion, I'm Captain of fucking America. Like, look, all of that's cool and all of that helps sell tickets and all of that builds the DTA. But like you said, what people want now is 2021. People want to know, who is Aaron outside of the ring? Who, I'm a family man, I'm a husband, I'm military. Um, this is one thing that I wanted to bring up too. Colton, thank you for bringing this up. You guys did a fan's birthday party.
Oh yeah.
That's fucking next level insane. And it's from the pictures that you posted and Broner or Tommy posted, and it looked like it wasn't just a like, oh, let's be wrestlers at this kid's birthday party. It was like, let's go have fun and treat this kid like a human being and make him have the greatest goddamn birthday party he's ever had.
When it's that exact idea, is like, I know we're trying to wrap this pitch up, but like,
No,
they're
there's
our biggest fans. Like,
yeah.
they're fucking, and it's not just them. I mean, and they are, with the Holland family. They are everything that is great about fans of pro wrestling. They are, like I said, like they're what every pro wrestler could dream of as fans. Like, they're everything we could ever ask for, and they spend so much time, they spend so much money coming to shows, traveling, supporting us, and like, they're at a trampoline park, so we already know we're gonna have a good fucking time because we're a bunch of children. But we owe it to them the same ways that they feel like they owe to us to come to the show and they cheer for us like that. And without them, and without them as the broad spectrum of fucking every fan that supports us, without you and with what you're doing and help spreading the word, they do the exact same thing, and they're the ones out here doing the fucking DTA chants or the Aaron chants or the Tommy chants, and they're the ones buying the fucking merch and paying my fucking bills, and they're the ones supporting my family when my fucking, like when my son was in the hospital, and and they're fucking, and then they're bringing snacks and shit to the fucking shows for us, and they're fucking buying pizzas and writing nice shit into them, and fucking just like, they brought us pizzas one day, and so like beat Jason Hodge's ass on it, and fucking just like, and it's fans like those that without fans like that, and without supporters like that, and like you, and everybody in between that huge spectrum of a fucking, a 7-year-old kid and a 35-year-old man, and everybody in between that, like, without that, and from the most casual to the most diehard, without those people, dude, we have fucking nothing. Like, we have nothing. And maybe it's like I have like I have the fucking, I don't know, like the hindsight to see that and be fucking ultra thankful for it. Um, but I know that like I would have fucking died to have that if I was a fucking kid. And if that little gesture of fucking spending 2 hours fucking around the trampoline park with our biggest fans who fucking love us endlessly, like that's nothing to me. Like that, I couldn't imagine a thing that I would rather do more than pay it back to the people who paid so much to us with their support and their fucking money and their fucking, their the everything. And as I said, I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
There's another guy that I want to shout out. I I'm I cannot remember his real name. On Instagram, he's the Wrestling Scope. He, I believe he's the guy that had you guys is that cartoon of the DTA drawn up for the T-shirts.
Yep.
Oh, I can't remember his name. God damn it! I'm blanking 2 weeks in a row. Sorry, brother.
Rashad.
I think I can't remember, but he, we talked, and Broner and I talked about it. It's dope that having fans like that obviously is dope, and it does not only great for this is your way of life, but it's got to be a mental thing where you're like, this is kind of fucking cool, and it kind of makes what I'm doing, with your situation with your son and missing some of the time with your daughter, to have that support. It's got to be like, okay, I would much rather. Yep, there you go, Kenji. You're the fucking man.
I told you. Rashid.
Um,
Rashad, close to it.
This is why we do it, right? Like, the fans are everything. I'm a huge fan, and like I said, we're gonna wrap this up. And there's one thing that I always say at the end of my podcast because it's become such a thing. You and I know, being in the military, the stigma of mental health and dealing with mental health, and with the Daphne thing that just happened recently, and other wrestlers, and not just wrestlers, but people who've committed suicide and dealing with mental health. You guys, please, if you're struggling with your mental health, I don't care if you know me, if you don't know me, if you're gay, straight, transgender, I don't care, black, white, Asian, doesn't matter. My DMs are always fucking open. Please DM me if you need to talk. If you don't feel comfortable talking on Twitter, I will give you my goddamn phone number. I have survived 7 suicide attempts. I can tell you right now, suicide is a permanent solution to something that will be better tomorrow. Please, please, please reach out. There's a suicide hotline. I'm telling you, my Twitter DMs, my Instagram DMs, my Facebook Messenger, all of that shit is open. If you guys are struggling with mental health, please, please, please reach out. Aaron, before I let you go, let everybody know where they can find you on social medias, where plug your merch, all of that.
And also to capitalize on what you're just saying too, if you motherfuckers having some problems, and if you motherfuckers are feeling like, you guys are having some issues with your fucking mental health, you fucking hit me up, on any of the social medias that I'm gonna mention in a minute, because that shit's not fucking fun, dude. Like, I have the unfortunate fucking, privilege to find a soldier who had killed himself, and then also, so, and I didn't know him well by any means, but then I also fucking spent the time with his family when they came to fucking town to do the funeral and all the funeral fucking shit, and I was the one who had to fucking take them everywhere. And I can promise you that there's motherfuckers out who are gonna love you even if they don't fucking know you. And those people, that family, the Maples family, they treat me like I'm their fucking son, like, because I was there for them in their fucking time of need, and I'll be there for your motherfucking time of need, bitch. If you just say something, don't play games with me. Fucking hit me up, because Daddy don't play that shit. If you're having problems, fucking hit one of us up, because we'll fucking be here to talk about it. And yeah, so fucking DT Aaron Orion on fucking Instagram, Aaron Orion on anywhere else. Fucking Death Road Army. We have a YouTube page that has been around for a while, but we never were really super active on it. But we've been putting vlogs up every week of all the shows that we do. They're usually fucking relatively fun and short. Um, we try to keep them like 5 minutes and under. It's not a lot of bullshit. It's a lot of just fucking what's happening, some funny shit, hopefully some cool shots and some cool matches and some cool conversation. Um, and those go up weekly, usually on Wednesdays. Today I was doing a podcast, so the one didn't get edited, but it will be edited tomorrow, probably on Thursday. So um, check that shit out. And then check out all the boys because that's what it's all about. Like the fucking Bum and Feet Boys Club. Uh, that's everything to me. Um, DTA is my baby, but now it's way past my baby. It's my fucking family. It's everyone. These are my fucking brothers, and I want you to support them. If you like me and hearing all my fucking bullshit and my fucking manic ramblings for the past 2 fucking hours, then you're gonna love the boys. So go fucking check them out on any of our social medias. They say you can find them all from DTA's pages, either on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You'll be able to find all the Bum and Feet Boys. Check those guys out, and fucking hopefully we'll see you motherfuckers at a show soon.
Absolutely. And look, you guys, like I tell you every week, you mean more to me, and the support that you guys have shown me in the last year means more to me than you will ever know. Remember, chaos is life, and life is chaos.